live. Steve, thanks for coming on. And obviously, a lot of you guys know Steve. He's very famous within Bigfoot circles. And he runs the channel Curious Cryptid. And you don't produce a lot of videos, but when you do, they mean something. You know, you just don't put, like, you know, filler in there when you actually produce a video. You do great narration and great video analysis and stuff, because I think that's one of your talents, right? Is the spectrogram video analysis kind of thing, right?
Well, I look at audio as signal analysis, and I use a spectral analysis for audio because it helps me to visualize things that, you know, otherwise you might not hear. There can be a lot of things going on in audio that you can't hear. I do listen to people who say, well, I have 300 hours of audio from 5 different recorders in such and such a place, and it's going to take me 600 hours to listen to. It shouldn't. It really shouldn't, because you can visualize what's there. And if you know what you're doing, and this is the key thing, if you know what you're doing, you will be able to see things in the spectrogram that you would never be able to hear. And even if you enhance them, you might not be able to hear them, but you can see them. You can see the artifacts.
So you can brush over the stuff that isn't relevant.
Exactly. You will never miss something that you should have heard.
Right. So
with
you have
video, I don't have any good tools to do that. Just kind of have to watch the video. And if something looks odd, sometimes I'll have to scrub through frame by frame in some areas. But I don't have much video.
But there are also apps that you can download that you can actually zone in on areas and stuff and see if they've added stuff, right? Is that how you do it?
Well, again, I haven't done a whole lot of actual video analysis. There are tools you can do to do that. Most of the time you look at the metadata, but metadata can be edited too. There are telltale signs in the way pictures are put together. I have a relatively cheap setup called XCam, and you can see as I move my head back and forth, the blending between the background picture and me tends to jump around and skip around a bit. You get effects like that when people try to overlay images and add things that way into video. So, yeah.
So, what do you think of let's start with the famous case. What do you think of what's it called? The famous case, the famous audio we caught out in Sierra Nevadas.
Oh, the Sierra sounds?
Sierra sounds. What do you think of that?
Mostly I think it's animals. I think it's misidentification of animals. And I've listened to their stories. I did spend a lot of time investigating that, and honestly, I think Ron Moorhead tells the story more completely maybe than even he wants to. But they were in that hunting shelter, and you couldn't see outside of that shelter. Apparently, it was
no windows.
It was a dark little fortress, no windows. They heard stuff going on outside that terrified them. They didn't want to look outside because they were terrified, and they just had to assume what was going on. When you have that kind of fear going on in your system, you know, anything, that's where the idea of anything is possible really gets to you. But Ron himself said at one point, one of the years they were there, they shot a bear. They had a problem bear that was coming into the camp and getting into their stuff, and they had to shoot the bear, and the sound stopped.
Really? No, I think it was Joe from Western New York Bigfoot. I think that on one of my videos with him, I think he played the bear, but then he retracted it and said no, it actually didn't sound like a bear. The one he played anyway. But did other people identify all the animals?
Not specifically, and I haven't really tried to dig into it, to be honest. It sounds like animal noises. Most of the stuff that sounds like chatter could be bear, could also be owls.
Yeah.
Owls have a monkey chatter sort of sound that they can make, and I don't know what the spectrum of animals are available
Yeah.
in that specific area, but I personally do think they are misidentified animal sounds.
Okay. So then we
They
go
never,
to
they,
the.
and remember, they never saw what was making those sounds.
Right.
They had footprints in the area. They saw things later, and I don't know if that was because it was convenient to see things, because it fed the story, because they really saw things. I at some point the story has taken over there in my mind.
Hmm. Bigfoot Okanagan is saying my mic sounds off. Does it sound off now? Because I'm closer to the mic. On the back here, there are settings but I think that they're on the normal settings. Does it
I don't
still sound
know.
bad?
From where I am, I think you sound okay.
Yeah, I like it to sound bassy, and sometimes I have a problem with it sounding tinny, but I think it's because I'm like sitting back like this. So I think I should, but it's pointed the right direction. I love
Uh,
this. Mark from Livewire actually sent me this.
oh,
Yeah, for free. It was very nice of him. But I don't know. Nothing's changed. It's
yeah. Well, I'd say something if I was hearing you sound really odd.
okay. So what's the next thing we go to? Well, Steve wrote this whole like 4-page document out in the hours leading up to this.
Just some notes to remind myself of stuff.
Yeah, this would take me about a week to write. I mean, it's in my head, but to write it out, I'm very ADD-ish. Not bassy sounding. Steve's. Hold on, can I just turn this mic around? Let me just make sure it's on the right setting. Yeah, it's on the right setting. So I don't know why. Let me just check the gain. Okay, the gain is a little bit up, but I mean, it sounds great in my headphones. I don't know why. It's in the normal. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't think there's anything I can do about it. But it's the quality of what I'm going to say is.
Does anyone other than Leon think it sounds weird?
Yeah, if Leon thinks it sounds weird, I'm out. So, Steve wrote this. Well, we want to get to the Bigfoot thing first because he doesn't start on the Bigfoot thing. Do you want me to read out your intro?
Oh, you can, or I can talk through it.
You've got it. Yeah, you've got it.
The reason I reached out to you last week was after your last show, and you're exploring some pretty dark places.
Yeah, I am.
And it's starting to affect you in some ways, and I thought it would be a good thing to talk about that.
Yeah.
But you also wanted to talk about the state of Bigfootery, which is madness.
I'm very disillusioned.
Is the word Leon uses, and I think it's a good one that fits. But I wanted to talk about spectrums because we like to reduce things as humans. We like to reduce things to black and white. And in conspiracies, we do that too. It is or it isn't. It's this or it's that. We really like to have binaries to make our decisions easier. And in reality, everything in the universe is a spectrum and shades of gray. And that's from biology all the way through to ideas and things like that. So the idea that was in my head this morning when I was talking about it was just looking at DNA and how DNA expresses. If you were an alien looking at our society, there's one thing that would probably stand out to you pretty easily. We have two basic populations, male and female. But those expressions of the DNA aren't as obvious necessarily as you would think on the surface. And outside expressions, there's a small population where it's a little ambiguous. We've learned about hermaphrodites. We know about hermaphrodites.
Yeah, I've known about them for years.
But there are also people who outwardly express pretty normally as male or female, but inwardly their system is mixed up. There are women that have elements of testicles in their buildup. There are men that have elements of ovaries in their construction. And doctors talk about this as nature's little mistakes, but it's a spectrum of expression, and we have the simplified statements for expression of chromosome 26. What you learned in school, XX and XY, but there's also X, just plain X. There's also Y, just plain Y. There's XXY. There's XYY. These are places on a spectrum, like colors on the visible spectrum. So XY is on that spectrum of expression as blue is in the visible light spectrum, but there's a lot of shades of blue. Ideas, the chemistry in our brains, all of these things, the way we think about things, they're all a spectrum. And like we were just talking about, for the most part, I can't stand Discovery Channel programming overall, and we'll talk about what I think of some of that, I hope, in a bit. But I have a guilty pleasure there. I love to watch how they're burning money on Oak Island. It's entertaining. On the other hand,
discuss Oak Island about it, because I don't know much about that. Was Ronnie LeBlanc involved in that, or was it his partner from the radio show in Boston here? The other guy?
I don't remember those names involved. The basic story is that someone saw lights on the island back in around the 1795 area in time. They went out to the island and they found a rope and a pulley over a depression in the ground. And they immediately thought buried treasure. They started digging, and they found layers of logs laid down with layers of clay at 10-foot intervals. They got down to about 90 feet, and they found a stone on top of the logs at the 90-foot level. The next day they came back, the whole thing was flooded.
By weather or by entrepreneurs or agent provocateurs?
Water had come into the system. It's now believed that there is a complex system of flood tunnels that brings in water from around the island as a booby trap, as a measure to protect whatever is buried there.
Really? Like man-made?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
There are elements of it they've found. They've found inlets at least one part of the island. And using sonar, they've managed to trace some of that. And they've done a lot of drilling. One of the ways they burn money all the time in this project is drilling holes to collect samples. And they've followed a path that looks like it comes from one of the coves on the island across to where the so-called treasure channel is. The problem is, back in the 50s and 60s, there was a guy who decided brute force was the best way to go, and he brought in some big, heavy mining equipment. He's the one that built the causeway out to the island, so you didn't have to take a boat anymore. And he dug a hole. It was about 100 feet wide, and I think it was 120 feet deep. And that started to flood in, and then it started to collapse, and then he had to push everything back. So that whole area that he dug up is now just, completely mixed up.
Yeah. But they find some stuff.
They find some stuff, and some of it is interesting. They do carbon dating. They have gotten themselves access to all sorts of fun technologies. and what they call the searcher area is basically from about 1795, early 1800s forward, and they find a lot of stuff that seems to date to what they call the pre-searcher times.
So
and there's evidence of a lot of interesting stuff happening in the islands around and before the Revolutionary War period.
And they did find some. Let me just bring it up. They find up. I don't know if this is relative or not, but I'll bring it up anyway. They find this Let me see. They find this cross, right? Is this relevant? The cross?
The lead cross?
Yeah, I might as well bring it up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Share screen. So they find that. Now, is that Christian or is it native or where the hell did it come from? Is it Viking?
That's when they first found about it and when they were studying it a bit. It's kind of in that transition of Christian time.
Yeah.
It's something that you could still carry that looks like it's Christian in origin and could pass for Christian. But I remember them talking about this actually being more of a pagan symbol.
It could be the transition between paganism and Christianity between the Vikings when they went to the New World.
Yeah.
I know that happened.
Yeah. When the Christians took over the narrative.
Yeah.
Talking about conspiracies. But that's old, and they did analysis on the lead, and it comes from an appropriate area to be related to the Templar stories and all of those related conspiracy theories.
Oh, the Templars are in there.
Oh, of course they are.
They're everywhere. So did you ever see that movie Valhalla Rising?
No.
It was about the Scottish. The Vikings had, one Viking in particular had invaded Scotland, and he was picked up by the Scottish, and they brought him along because he was mustard, he was badass. So they brought him along to fight in the Crusades with them, but they ended up going the wrong way, and they ended up on the shores of somewhere in the Americas, and then they got killed by the natives. So that was just it was probably just fiction, but that kind of thing probably happened.
For some reason, this is bringing up one of the old Warner Brothers cartoons. I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. You're going off to the Crusades, and you end up on the shores of the Americas somewhere. That's a wrong turn.
Yeah, they went from Scotland. I guess they went west instead of east. I don't know how they ended. What was a movie? I don't know, but it was probably just a.
I don't know. Hire a better navigator, please.
I know. Well, they were just a bunch of clansmen, with a holy man guiding them, and I think the Viking slave, because he was a slave, but they just brought him along for badassery. I think he ended up killing them all, and then he was the only one alive, and he was the only one that reached the shores, and he got there, and it was just a bunch of like Mohicans or something, and they were just waiting on him, and they just bashed his head in with some cudgels, and that was the end of the movie. But it was an amazing movie. It was fantastic.
That brings up an interesting idea to me. The first settlers to America brought diseases over that wiped out most of the native civilization. What if that had happened a couple of 100 years earlier? So the population had largely rebuilt, but they were immune to our diseases, or at least the old ones.
Yeah.
That could have changed a few things.
Could have been. So, okay. So do you want to read this introduction, or?
Well, I've kind of gone through that one.
Yeah, you actually have, yeah.
So what I wanted to talk about in the way this is affecting you, first of all, do you agree? Are you aware that it's kind of affecting you a bit?
Yes.
Okay, that's pretty good. Because if you're not, you can go deeper and deeper down the rabbit
Oh
hole
yeah,
until it's hard to get you back.
yeah. I stay on the edges.
That's
Well,
good.
I don't just stay on the edges. I look into things and listen to the other side, and I'm like, well, what evidence is there to support this? You know, I totally believe that there was bad shit going on in the Epstein thing because of my experience with the Concora scandal in Northern Ireland in the 70s, because they were doing exactly the same thing in the 70s.
Yeah.
So I think the Epstein thing was legit. Pizzagate, I don't know, there was some weird code words in the Pizzagate emails that nobody could explain. Then some nutcase goes in there looking for a basement with a AK-47. That was stupid, but there was some weird stuff there.
Yeah,
So
I'm trying to make reference to your conspiracy. Oh, it's not showing up because of the silly camera. Your conspiracy triangle screen.
oh yeah, Bigfoot's way up there.
Yeah, yeah. I was amused by that. We're kind of close to the denial of reality sort of area.
Yeah, cryptids in general. Yeah, cryptids, they're like in the middle, right? And then you've got like at the top is QAnon. At the bottom, the second from the bottom is Epstein killed himself. That whole thing. At the bottom is the
Uh,
what do you call that program the CIA ran? MK Ultra.
MK Ultra.
JFK said assassinations on the second level, and I think he was assassinated by the CIA. I really do think that because of all the shit they did with Cuba and going behind the generals' backs and negotiating peace with Russia when the generals wanted to blow the shit out of them. I think that's pretty plausible. Stuff like
I
that.
I think it's even more plausible in terms of inaction rather than mission of action, inaction to prevent it from happening.
What do you mean?
And well, to me, a full on conspiracy idea would be the CIA and the generals actually plotted to have Kennedy killed.
Right.
I think it's even more reasonably plausible that he had pissed them off enough that they were aware of intelligence that foreign operatives were willing to try to set this up, and they didn't do anything to stand in the way of it.
Like the Cubans, because of the bad pigs or something.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been. Or the mafia.
Yeah, I mean, it's all speculation.
Yeah.
We're never going to dig up the truth on that, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, then there's a lot of things that I don't have the full evidence on, like the whole Jersey school scandal, the Concora boys' home.
Yeah. Well, we love them because they smooth over. The term I've been using recently is spackling. They spackle over the cracks in our understanding of how the world works, and they create a smooth story. Even if they're not based in reality, they at least cover over the cracks, so we have a better confidence that we know what's going on, even if we've just made it up in here.
Well, I can see why people started to really question things after 2003. I can really see why people started to say, hold on a second. They made up this big lie to go into Iraq and Afghanistan. They didn't have to go into Afghanistan. The special forces were already in there. They took care of it, although they blew themselves up because of messed up coordinates. And then Donald Rumsfeld sent a full invasion force in there. But they could have done that with special forces. But I think that Rumsfeld and the military-industrial complex wanted to invade Afghanistan for various reasons. People say it was because it was a strategic point between what do you call it? Continents. Other people say it was to control the opioid trade. So there's different theories. I don't know why, but I know why they went into Iraq. Well, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
They wanted to take out Saddam, and they wanted the oil. That's what I think. I think it's pretty simple. I think
Well,
it's an Occam's razor kind of scenario.
yeah. Now, understanding that the U.S. doesn't depend much on that supply of oil, but that supply of oil does affect the world prices. It's a global market.
Right. Plus, they want to control that whole Strait of Hormuz coming out of that region. So that's why they want They want their guy in Iran as well. That's why they want a coup in Iran, and they wanted to get rid of Saddam so they can control that whole and Somalia too. You know, that's what I think. I think they want control of that whole area where most of the oil comes out of. Right? Isn't that where most of the oil comes out of?
The larger portion of the oil is coming out of the Arabian Peninsula,
Right.
a little bit south of there, but there it's all. There's a channel I've been enjoying listening to, and he talks about foreign policy a lot. Bo of the Fifth Column. He used to be a reporter. Yeah, he used to be a reporter. He used to be a journalist. He's still doing his journalism and using his journalism skills.
Is that the guy with the beard just stands in his basement and talks?
Yeah. Let's talk about blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just a thought. You all have a good day.
Yeah, I like him.
And he talks about foreign policy a lot. And the way he talks about it is foreign policy is this big giant poker game where everyone's cheating. And everyone's trading for what he describes as power coupons. And what we want to do is we want to control a lot of things in that area in the Middle East, or at least have some influence over them. We had them before the Iranian Revolution and before Saddam changed things.
Right.
And yeah, we want to get those back. But we're not doing nation building. That's not what we're doing. There are bad things going on there. Well, there were bad things going on before, but now they're not in our favor and they're bad.
Well, we installed the Shah, then he was worse than the current Iranian regime.
Yeah, we're not necessarily very good at picking.
Right.
People are going to be good for the population.
Yeah. And then I guess they supported Saddam because they wanted to fight the guys that conquered in the Iranian Revolution, and then he, I guess, turned against the Western democracy, and they wanted him out too. Yeah. Same with Gaddafi.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Not really. Yeah. Never really works out well that way.
No, it doesn't. It just ends up in destruction. Let me see where we're at.
But, we kind of started out away from Bigfootery.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, this was just notes, and this is just the stuff that we didn't talk about on Monday that was already in the chat.
Yeah.
But some of the things that are going on, the way psychology works, remember one thing as a foundation that, and Leon has talked about this, we have 3 brains in our brain. There's the reptilian brain, and it does kind of the regulatory work, the breathing and the heartbeat, adrenaline, things like that. There's the limbic system, and that's the emotional system. That's what mammals developed over the reptiles. And then there's the neocortex, which is the big cauliflower thing that people think of when they look at the brain. The other 2 are way in the back.
Right.
And the neocortex is something that can give us the opportunity to overcome a lot of the influence of the other 2 if we choose to do it. It can have influence over there. And all of these systems influence each other in various ways.
Right. They're all connected.
The thing is, the 2 older ones work on chemistry. They work on chemistry, and they're lightning fast. So you're going to start to have a gut reaction before you can think about what you're having a reaction to.
That's a reptilian brain.
And the limbic.
And the limbic, okay.
Yeah. The emotion of fear. The reptilian brain is probably starting to pump up your system with adrenaline. So you're wound up, you're pumped up, you've got a lot of energy going, and the other system starts to respond to that by giving you a sense of fear. Now that was good for us in the jungle. Pareidolia was good for us in the jungle. If you imagine the face of a predator in that bush over there, and you ran away before you found out if there was a predator there or not, you were more likely to survive. So we did pretty well by being skittish, frightened little animals.
That's where Bigfoot comes in. Bigfoot's between the limbic, and the neocortex.
In a way, yes. We're being afraid. We hear something big in the woods. If we're looking for Bigfoot, we're expecting it's going to be Bigfoot. We've got Bigfoot on the brain. And then something happens that we can't see and we can't explain. And especially back when we didn't have thermal cameras and night vision, you just have something big crashing through the woods, and you don't get to find out until the next morning if it left human-like footprints or hoof prints. You are stuck with that fear, and that's going to shape your experience. Are you level-headed enough to overcome that fear? That's what basic training does to a soldier. You're exposed to these extreme circumstances over and over again so that your neocortex can help you to overcome this chemistry that's going on below it in your system, and help you to use that and employ that and control that.
Okay, but what happens when you actually see the damn thing? Right, that's the big question. That's my question.
Yeah, and the way I put it to people, you're walking down a trail in the middle of the afternoon, and you step around a corner, maybe around a big rock or something in the trail, and here is one of these things standing 20 feet in front of you. Over the next 5 to 10 seconds, what do your sphincters do?
I don't know.
Are you going to need a change of underwear?
Sometimes. I've heard stories.
It's going to be an individual reaction. There's not going to be a universal answer to that. But almost universally, a sense of fear would be entirely understandable. I think I have one experience that I absolutely just can't get away from the conclusion that there's got to be a real live creature out there. And I got to say, I'm probably glad we didn't see it. Because our whole experience of the thing might have been different. The car got shoved. We did not step out of the car. We started up and drove away. And it was later that I saw a dinner plate size handprint on, let's see, backwards, forwards, which is left and which is right. A dinner plate size handprint on the fender of the car, and signs of fingers on the bumper as if something tried to lift a little bit to shove the car over to the side, and traces of hair where it brushed along the car, where it stepped past and then stomped off into the woods. And it absolutely sounded bipedal. It was terrifying. And we had a chance to talk about it, and we were talking about it a lot before we got there. And then when we got to the point where I saw that trace evidence, the fear had its opportunity to subside. And I think a lot of people traumatize themselves in that fear with not having someone to talk to because they were out there alone, or not being willing to talk to anyone because they assume people are going to think they're crazy. And there is a lot of that. I admit that. We're not very good about those things. We're not very supportive of each other.
I would tell people, well, I would tell people straight up what happened, but then that's just me.
Yeah. But, you've talked about Carrie's story. You believe Carrie's story. I believe Carrie's story.
Yeah, I do, totally.
But I also think, Carrie was on the, you can't trust these creatures. True. You don't know what they think. You don't know what they are. True. Yeah. But I think a lot of that comes from the fear that he had from his encounter and the way that happened, because here he was, the big manly hunter out there,
Southern boy, right?
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, hey, you're not on the top of the food chain, but I'm not going to bother with you. You're not worth my time. And it grunts and turns and walks away.
What was it though? I mean, I can't get over that. I can't reconcile that in my head what else it would have been. He gave a perfect description of it, not unless he's totally making this up and he's crazy, which I don't think he is.
I agree. And am I crazy because I saw a handprint on the car? That seems like physical trace evidence to me.
Right.
And then, there's the Patrick Vaughn story, and he also had, and I absolutely believe his initial story. And there's something that goes on with Bigfoot stories that we ought to touch on here.
Right.
I believe his initial story, and he kind of traumatized himself over that. Over time, we've talked through it a few times. His brain owns that story, if you understand what I mean.
Right.
And I have joked with him. I have openly jabbed at him a little bit that the first time he saw Bigfoot, he was basically being chased out of the woods by a naked girl.
Right. He would resonate with that.
But and his story isn't necessarily that different from others where someone was escorted out of the area or pushed out of the area. It wasn't a chase. It wasn't a race. He didn't outrun that creature. Right. There are lots of other stories like that where I somehow outrun it. No, you didn't outrun it.
Yeah, let you go.
It just kept pushing, and at the end of the story, he gets to the point where he can get to his truck, and it's standing there off to the trail, off to the side, ahead of him, letting him go by.
Well, and you've got Joe's story. Joe turned around and there it was.
Yeah.
50 feet away. I mean, I believe Joe. I mean,
yeah.
I also believe Dave. Dave's seen one on video, which is another thing. That's another topic. I mean, he saw this thing going up to a dumpster. It was 9 feet tall. He confirmed that. Like, what the hell was that?
Yeah. Now Donald. There's. This is what I agree with Thomas Steenberg about the Ivan Marks syndrome. I think even Thomas believes that Ivan Marks had a real, genuine first encounter, and he tells the story and he gets attention, and the attention dies off and wanes. But then if the story changes a little bit, or if there's a new story, there's the attention again, and it becomes about getting the attention over time, and it's not the creature. I tend to believe, like I said, Patrick's initial story. Let's see, someone else, Gary Spikes.
Gary Spikes, yeah. I interviewed him.
He had a very interesting story, and that was another one where he wasn't chased, but the expression from the creature, once he was able to talk through the experience and get past the trauma, the creature was curious about him.
Yeah, look through the window.
It wasn't threatening. It wasn't trying to beat the window out.
Right. It's mystifying. And then we have my story in Oklahoma. I mean,
Yeah.
we heard some weird sounds. Dave's a native of there, and he couldn't identify some of them. Some of them we did identify, but that night, that whole day, the woods were deadly silent, and I was like, something's going to happen tonight. And of course, something happened. Someone was walking around my tent at 3 in the morning, and it sounded like somebody in 2 feet. It really did. I may be wrong, because I didn't see it, but it was terrifying.
What probably impresses me most about you is you're willing to say that it wasn't absolutely Bigfoot.
Well, I didn't see it. I can't say
Well,
that.
a lot of people don't have a problem with that little limitation.
I know. I hear them all the time on Sasquatch Chronicles, you know. But
What
that's
else
another thing.
could it be? So I guess I would ask you the question: if the same thing happened now, would you grab a flashlight and stick your head out of the tent?
No, I still wouldn't. None of it sounded that heavy. This thing sounded big, and big means scary.
So if you had a remote control camera that looked in on the camp, and instead of having to get a flashlight and stick your head out of the camera, you crawl into the sleeping bag so it's dark, you turn on your phone, you activate the camera.
Yeah.
Would you do that?
Yeah, that's the thing to do. That's what we should have done.
Because we have the kind of tech to do that now,
Yeah,
and
I
that
know.
wasn't as easy to do back then.
Yeah, that's probably what we should have done in hindsight. I think we could have done that. That was only a few years ago.
Well, there's a lot of simpler, cheaper tech that's available now.
Or even
But
just a camera setup.
yeah, you could have done a motion trip cam or a game camera, but then it wouldn't have happened because
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't
big
seen
tech
it in
crunches
light.
these cameras.
Well, what I think happened was, now this is if it was a Bigfoot, because we had grease pans out, we had a cooler full of goodies, and Dave and his son, I could hear Dave snoring because I woke up with a start. Now, I don't usually wake up. I took sleeping pills that night, right? I take sleeping pills sometimes, and in a situation like that, I will because I can't sleep outside. I just I'll pop a sleeping pill. But I woke up with a start around 3 o'clock, 3 to 3:30, and I heard this thing crunching around like 10 feet away from my tent, and I'd stopped snoring because I'm a wicked snorer. So I'd stopped snoring, and obviously the thing heard me stop snoring. So that's why I told you I covered my ears because I was freaked out. I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to go back to sleep. And about 2 minutes later,
Go
yeah,
away, go away.
exactly, just like that, like a big baby. And I took my hands away, yelled for Dave. We rushed straight out of the tent. It was gone. Couldn't hear any crashing in the distance. So it probably heard my snoring stop. I heard a few crunches, covered my ears, and it was gone. And in 1 minute, then I alerted Dave. But we did hear some weird. We heard tree knocks. I mean, those were like tree knocks. I don't know what the hell made them, but they were tree knocks. I mean, you can see them on my spectrogram audio, the audio program. What do you call it? Not Auphonic.
Are you using the one I suggested, Sonic Visualizer?
I used that for different stuff, but not this. This I used. What is it called? I can't remember the name of it. It's right on my computer here if I can find it. But it shows you the peaks. You know, it's just a line with blue peaks, and every time a tree knock hit, you could see it go up.
Okay. That's just showing you the sound.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just displaying the raw sound. Yeah.
And it was a big thump every now and again, thump. But it was in the distance and it sounded very tinny. But that was the sound of my It was too far away. Other times it sounded like a whomp. Other times it sounded like a click. You know, it
Yeah.
wasn't anything hitting the recorder because it was like well covered. I covered it in a little like, kind of like bush, you know, like in among leaves and stuff. So I don't think it was that.
I have heard little taps. I haven't heard anything that I would call a wood knock. Now, the people in one research area that I have visited have said, "Oh, you'll know a wood knock when you hear it. It's like a gunshot going off."
Hmm.
Well, they are gunshots going off there, and I've seen some of the videos that those people had put up saying that
Right?
that's a
Yeah.
wood knock. That's not a wood knock. There are people who go out at night to a gravel pit that's about half
Yeah.
a mile away from that site, and a couple of boxes of shotgun shells and a couple of cases of beer. That's
Yeah.
a pretty good time out there.
Well, now there was one day, I think it was the second day when we were heading down to the second campsite. I didn't hear it until I listened to it back, but I was walking down towards where Dave and stuff was driving, and I was doing a video, and you heard this thump, like somebody had gotten a baseball bat and hit a tree, and it was like maybe 100 yards away. I heard it as clear as day, and I put it on my channel, and I don't know what else I could have been. If maybe it was a guy with a baseball bat hitting a tree, but there was no one around because there was only one road in there. Dave knows the area very well, and he went off season, so there was no hunters around. There was no hunting allowed in there, and that's when we went because he knew the area well. But it was weird. It was definitely weird. I mean, we
Yeah.
heard like cackles and stuff. Like, okay, that could have been a coyote. We heard rock clacks. We heard wood knocks. We heard whistling. That could have been an owl or some weird bird.
Oh, that's cool. Can you move that up here so I can observe it? Because I got people who claim they have that, but I'm always finding
It's on my channel.
explanations.
Yeah, it's one of the top videos on my channel.
No, I want to go down and actually experience that stuff. And
Oh,
because what I try to do is, I'm looking at, okay, you're explaining and describing this. I want to go to where you saw it and try to figure out what's actually there.
you have to be blindfolded though. Dave doesn't want anybody else to know where it is. He doesn't want the BFRO down there.
Who would?
With their Harry Potter tops and their Indiana Jones hats.
Okay, that I haven't seen. I wouldn't disbelieve it.
So I'm not bashing the BFRO, but we all know the types. There are certain people in every community. But yeah, so
as a monolithic entity, I think we can bash the BFRO. Yeah. I think there are a few good people in there, and there are a few nuts.
So I was so I've been getting very disillusioned lately because I spend too much time on Facebook. Now, when I went over to the Coalition of Critical Thinking, I was able to get a better, view of what's going on in Bigfoot.
A more cynical view, anyway. Yeah.
Very cynical, like some very jaded people in there, and I've become one of them. But I remember on the Facebook Bigfoot page that I helped moderate. One day I went down there and I did a poll, and about 1 or 200 people chimed in. But my two questions were, or I think my one question was, for those of you who have seen Bigfoot, how many of you believe? What is the percentage of your belief in Bigfoot? And I think it was 100 questions. This is no joke. There was 99 questions. It said 99 answers. It said 100%. There was one question or one answer that was not so sure. And these are people that haven't seen Bigfoot. And that was enough for me. I'm like, I would understand if people had seen the creature or even had a really close contact. But this is just nuts. That's confirmation bias. This is Bigfoot in the brain.
Did you hear the story of when Ron Howard was showing Apollo 13 to test audiences?
No.
There was one guy in one of the test audiences who just had negative review across the whole movie. And so he was curious about this, and he asked the guy if he'd come in for an interview, and he came in, and they were talking to him, and Ron said, well, what's the real issue you have with this movie, Apollo 13? It's totally unbelievable. They'd never have survived.
Apollo 13. Hold on, is that when they all blew up?
No, Apollo 13 was when the oxygen tank blew up on the way to the moon, and they had to scramble and MacGyver a bunch of stuff so that they would be able to survive.
Oh, they did survive.
Yeah, they did survive. They did came back. It's a matter of history. It's a dramatic recreation of the historic story.
Tom Hanks and shit.
The guy who panned the movie apparently didn't realize it was actual history.
Oh, really? Oh, Jesus.
I don't know what rock he'd been living under, but
I probably wouldn't either, coming from Europe, because we might not have heard that full story, because it was all pretty, there's a lot of different stories coming out about moon trips and stuff, people blowing up and people land on the moon. And I know it now, but.
Well, Apollo 1 was the fire that killed them during a launch simulation, just doing an exercise to prepare for a launch. Apollo 13 was one that got the world's attention, so you probably heard about that. You might not have differentiated it from the other stuff.
Yeah, I probably got mixed up.
But because it was a real survival situation.
Was it in the 90s?
No, that was in the 60s.
Oh, okay. Because I thought it was one of the 90s, because I never watched TV in the 90s. I was too busy taking drugs and getting fucked up.
Well, there was the shuttle program, the Challenger.
Challenger, yeah. Wasn't it the Challenger that blew up?
The Challenger blew up during launch. Yeah.
That's right.
I was on campus, and this guy with a kind of a twisted sense of humor came up to me as I was walking out of a class that morning, and he said, "Did you hear about the space shuttle blowing up this morning?" And I was just kind of stunned by that. And I'm okay. He does have a weird sense of humor. I'm waiting for the punchline. And no, I'm serious.
Wow.
Yeah. Go to the hub. And so, everyone was at the hub, crowded around TVs.
And it blew up like in plain sight, right? It was like not even out of Earth's atmosphere. Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, I saw 2 shuttle launches, so I got to say I'm glad I missed that one.
Now you're from Washington, right?
Yes.
I can see the mountains in the back. It's kind of like Steve Ishdahl's mountains, which is a good segue.
This really is the green screen because I'm not up there.
Yeah, no. People have said that he uses a green screen. He doesn't.
No.
There's enough to criticize.
No, it really is that spectacular up there.
Oh, I know. I've seen some of Brent's photography. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's another good segue. I wanted to talk about his video. That was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
He's like, Wes, you can come on here and dispute these facts if you want. He's got no fear.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't think he has to be afraid of that happening.
No, that's true. So he's calling his bluff.
But I have only a minor difference of opinion with Brent on that. I think Wes is just plain a Bigfoot storyteller.
Right.
He may have, his interest may have been gained by an initial experience, but he has learned how to use that experience and the stories that people bring to him to make that podcast and make that a successful podcast and a successful audience. It's entertainment, and it doesn't, and like Estall, it doesn't matter if any of it's true or not. It's people who want to hear a Bigfoot story, and that's where they go to hear it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. When I first got into Bigfoot, I listened to it all the time. It was fantastic.
The turbulence happens when you have someone who goes on a channel like that and they're worshipped for sharing their story, and the sincere adulation of the crowd. And then they come to one of the very few channels that we have where
Right.
we're taking that and we're asking the question, what really happened?
Right.
You're telling the story, I experienced Bigfoot, and we're asking the question, well, what really happened? And
People don't want to hear that.
you come into this place and you see the sign that says Bigfoot. Oh, it's Bigfoot. I haven't had the adulation of a crowd lately. I want to tell my story and feel good. And we start asking questions. And we start asking questions that are like, well, what makes you think that was Bigfoot? And all of a sudden, let's go back to those three brains. Their limbic brain is telling them something is wrong here, and they're starting to feel agitated and upset, and their reptilian brain is starting to amp up the adrenaline because we got to get ready for something bad is going on here. And they know they're good people, and they're feeling really bad about where they are, so we must be bad people. We're bad people because we're questioning them. No one's bad people here, but I don't deny that you're in a situation that you haven't been in most of Bigfootery, because most of it's about the stories and the entertainment and the encounter stories and that sort of thing. And we are not so much, and that's kind of new.
I would love to be. I would love to be able to, really. Well, at the start, I kind of did. I thought there was Bigfoot like around where I lived and shit, and that they were probably like hiding for a while. For the first year or so, I'm like, it's possible because I had interviewed some people on my channel that said, yeah, Bigfoot are in like urban environments. They're everywhere. We just can't see them. So I'm like, really? So I'm like walking around like friggin' like looking around my shoulder. And then after a while, I'm like, man, there's like 5 Bigfoot sightings in like 40 years around this area, and only one of them's a visual. And that guy's probably full of shit,
And
So,
yeah, so well, if they hide like Matthew Johnson says they hide, they're in the tree. They're part of the tree. They're one with the tree.
oh my god! Well, Matthew Johnson's original story was fantastic. What got him into the whole thing, like he stayed back to protect his family and stuff. That may have been true, his encounter, but then I don't know, did he get a head injury or something, and he went off the deep end?
Along the way, there was a traumatic brain injury, and that may have caused some psychological changes.
Yeah. Yeah, he was getting messages from them that Trump was going to win the election and stuff, and the communists were going to invade America. And he was deciphering all these like audio frequencies and shit. And that's when Team Squatching USA as a Facebook group.
Yes.
And there's some crazy. What, do you ever see the channel Man of Light?
I think I've heard of that.
Man of Light's
There's
probably
so many Bigfoot places that I don't go without a hazmat suit.
Yeah, Man of Light is one of these. He's from Jersey or something, and he goes out and he takes pictures of pareidolia, and he can see like
Jersey, really?
Yeah, a mother feeding its baby in the bushes, and Bigfoot disappearing in front of him. He has video of it, and the comments are like, "Oh my god, I can totally see it! Wow, it's amazing what you got there." And I don't want to bitch on the guy, like he might have issues. I don't know, but he really believes this stuff. I don't think he's just lying. He's not lying.
This is America. There's a lot of people who can't afford the medication they probably should be on.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't want to diagnose anybody, and I know people are like, there's a lot of hopeful magical thinkers out there. Man of Light. There we go. Thank you, Cash. By the way, Cash is in the chat, and she's a moderator, and she's always around.
I've seen that.
Yeah, she's great. She's always putting links up, and She was always on hand when you need her. She's
Yeah,
great. Thank you, Cassie.
it's almost like having a producer.
I know. She's great. She was the big moderator on Sasquatch Odyssey, Bigfoot Odyssey.
Bigfoot
I'm
Odyssey.
thinking of the
Yeah.
other Bigfoot Odyssey, yeah, with Carrie and stuff, and then that's gone now. They stopped
Well,
it.
yeah. Well, you know, our group had a little friction there.
Our group, which one?
Well, the group of us that want to try to apply scientific thinking and objective reasoning and things like that to understanding what's going on with Bigfoot.
Was it the network?
And are you thinking of the network, the thing that Steve Coles tried briefly to put together?
Yeah.
A lot of the people in that, but this was before that.
Oh.
That was kind of an attempt to bring things out of that little season.
Oh.
It came to a head with the Carl incident. Do you remember?
Something about that, yeah.
Okay. And this is where I really started to look at the story time thing differently, and I stopped really caring about it, and I stopped really worrying about it. Because it's not hoaxing, it's a different market. It's just plain a different market. The problem is going to be, and I've had this talk with Brent a number of times, is the people who want to exploit different niches in the storytime market. Well, they have learned that people who talk like Leon and me and Steve Coles and all these other people and there's some popularity there. There's potentially a new market they can exploit there. So they have to start using the scientific words that we're using. And then there are the people who say, well, the Storytime channels should put, we're only Bigfoot stories. You should wear a patch on your clothing that says you're this or that. That's not going to work very well. People have tried that before.
Where does Carl come into this? What happened with him? I can't remember.
Carl was selected by a secret government contact out of all of the world of Bigfootery as the place where Bigfoot information would be leaked from government secrecy into the rest of the world. And Carl was the gateway for that knowledge. I can't damn him for ambition.
Yeah. You're all going to make a living. And I was bothered by it at the time, but on the other hand, I didn't want to mess with it because I was kind of on the cusp on the transition there, and then I saw the way that whole thing dealt out, and I decided to just stop caring about Bigfoot story time. But one of the things that washed out, one of the things that washed out of that though was Carrie felt extremely threatened suddenly. Right, because he believed him. Because he believed Carl, and he felt that we were being totally unfair and totally unreasonable for actually trying to sit down and think about what Carl's actually saying and trying to analyze it and make sense out of it. And none of them made a lick of sense. Right. But that created a culture war. A culture war is a pretty common thing when you have this sort of division going on. Yeah, I come in at the end of that or in the middle of that. I can't remember. Yeah, and Carrie is metaphorically speaking, Carrie starts to circle the wagons to protect his business. And I don't have a problem with that, first of all. Second of all, though, is I don't think he had a real sense of the market size. I mean, he was getting close to 30 or 40,000, 35,000 subscribers at the time.
I mean, those of us looking at reality have a couple of hundred, maybe 1,000 or so
Yeah.
at best. And if you look at that market, you realize there's not a market for rational thinking, reality Bigfoot, because it's boring, because they're not around every tree.
Right. I
There's
know.
a huge market for the Bigfoot storytime thing. And
It's huge.
the only thing I disliked about the way he ran that business was he said it's open to everyone, everyone's welcome, but there are a lot of people who were blocked when they'd ask questions in there.
Right.
But he wouldn't be open about that. He said, no, we don't block anyone. Yeah, they do. Just be honest and open about it. We're blocking people because we want to make this a family-friendly place. We have a particular kind of story and the way we want to approach the story of Bigfoot. And this is our business and this is what we do. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. Well, I guess
It's
Gary was
the
so
saying
convinced
we
by
don't
what
block people. It's the saying we don't block people, and then taking people up behind the shed and bang, and you never see them again.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if I saw what Kerry saw and if the story's true, I'd be very protective of other people that saw Bigfoot, like that guy Mark Burton. Remember he came on the show?
Mm-hmm.
You spoke to me about that. I mean, he let him run for like 2 hours, and I don't want to say what you said, but
I'll say what I said.
yeah, well, go ahead.
Mark had a traumatic experience. Now, whether it was real or not doesn't matter. Mark had a traumatic experience, and it was a real experience to him, and it was terrifying to him.
Terrifying to me.
But what was done there is what's done in a lot of that kind of forum. They take someone who has a Bigfoot story, and remember I said I think a lot of people traumatize themselves. Whether they've traumatized themselves or it was really a traumatic experience, they're dragged through this experience again. They've never had a chance to really talk to someone therapeutically about it and navigate it. They're dragged through this. When this happens, they relive this experience. They are brought back into this same trauma. And then at the end of the show, hey, you doing okay? Great, thanks, click.
See ya.
And they're left to deal with that, or their family is left to deal with them dealing with that.
Yeah, they fuck off and had a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
After living through it again. There was one guy on Sasquatch Chronicles, and he was when he was a kid, he saw there was an old veteran that was camping on what do you call it day you guys have over here, fucking Thanksgiving, and the Bigfoot. They were giving the veteran food, and one day the Bigfoot came out of the trees and pulled the veteran into the fucking trees, and the guy was like going absolutely worse than Mark Burton. He was crying and screaming. And I'm like, holy shit, this is the most insane story I've ever heard. And if it's true, this guy needs to be in a psych ward, not on a public forum telling the story. This kind of thing. But yeah, I just got to go over and close this damn door because it's letting the sound of the boiler and the door needs to close. Give me 1 second. You can keep talking.
Okay. But if you were watching around the time that, oh boy, you clicked on that's entertaining. That was what was going on with Mark Burton was so bad that Leon was actually reaching out to Daniela and them to try to point out that, hey, you've got a guy that's on the verge of a psychotic break. You need to unwind this and bring this down.
What?
I liked the way that was flashing on and off.
Yeah, Brent, we were talking about your video earlier. It was great. It was well produced. I loved it.
Yeah, actually, I think you ought to talk to Cornell later at some point when he's in the mood to do a Bigfoot thing again.
Yeah, I was looking at Brent, the comments from that Brent was going to get. There wasn't as many as I expected, though. I was really disappointed. I'm like, come on, guys. I thought they would come out of the woodwork and attack you so bad. Maybe they have. I haven't went back to it again.
Well, Brent and I have had a lot of communication. We've met a number of times in various places out there. We're very like-minded on a lot of
Right.
this. There are a few minor differences of opinion, but we're mature people.
Now, what's your BBBM at?
What's a what?
Your BBBM, your Bigfoot believability. Actually, it's BBM, Bigfoot believability meter. What percentage is it? If you had to give a percentage, because mine used to be 80%. In favor of.
Okay, so I have that experience. I have a small handful of experiences that I have a great deal of difficulty finding an explanation for that doesn't require a creature that fits the parameters of Bigfoot. I think there's a real creature out there. The problem is, where's the frickin' DNA? And I've been looking over his shoulder a little bit at a eDNA study that's going on that Dr. Hart's been doing, and he's working on this. And he's found a very good catalog of all of the creatures that are out there and all of the drainage basins where he collected samples from, and humans. And there's not much that really pushes the boundary of human DNA in what he's found. So we're stuck back with the thinking that we had back in 2020 when I was first connected with him, and we were kind of back analyzing the Ketchum project and trying to see if there was potentially anything really interesting in there. And either their DNA is so close to ours that we don't have the markers to find what the differences are, and he has not, and in this study he has not done whole DNA sequencing, or maybe what's out there is not what we think it is. I'm not sure which is more interesting, but I think I know which one is more terrifying to me. I'd rather have a real creature out there.
What? Sometimes I go back and forth, and if it is, this might sound stupid, but if it is interdimensional or paranormal, it would make a lot more sense.
Well, sure. I mean, we have wildlife cameras. For example, in Washington right now, we have live wildlife cameras. Basically, all of the major crossings, they've been redesigning I-90 with animal crossings, and we have cameras on those all the time. In fact, we saw the first moose in history wander its way past right on our property, basically. Crossing I-90 right where our property literally is. And it was seen later down in the Mount Rainier area. It's the first moose that's ever been sighted and cataloged in the Mount Rainier area. Right. If we can see one damn moose, why can't we find a Sasquatch? That's a big problem.
Yeah, it is. It's that's the $1 million question, isn't it? It's just like.
But what Cornell? What left the handprint on my car?
Right. Right.
Did a spiritual, mystical entity leave a frickin' handprint on my car just to punctuate a point?
Could it have been something else, though?
What?
What size was it?
It was this shape.
Oh, a dinner plate.
But it was the size of a dinner plate, and I don't mean a little salad plate. I mean a full 12-inch dinner plate. Was
it a clear, greasy print with grooves in it and stuff?
The road dust had been brushed off. Basically, I do a lot of backwoods driving. I did back then. I still do today. My cars are eternally coated in road film. the road film was basically pushed away by probably a relatively greasy handprint, but the road film was brushed away absolutely in the shape of a gigantic human hand. Okay, a ghost did it. Why did it leave the trace evidence? Why did it leave the handprint? Why did it look like it needed fingers to kind of lift up on the bumper a bit to push the car to the side?
Yeah.
That's a lot of detail.
Yeah. What the fuck? I don't know. I'm really miffed. An area. Let me see. Brenda,
Yeah, I know, Donald. That leaves me with a lot of serious questions.
Donald. Oh, he's way up here.
Yeah, he's back up there a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, Donald. Well, other people say they have physical interactions, but they don't have evidence to show it. Did you take pictures and stuff, Steve?
No, I mean this was the early '80s, maybe mid '80s. I don't have my notebooks from that time. Silly me, science type. Yeah, I've kept journals and notebooks, and I don't know where they are from that time, and it bugs the heck out of me. But by memory, I put it back to about 1986 because I was dating Kim, who I'm married to, and she was up here from school that she was going to, and that narrows it down to a very specific period of time.
Yeah. That is weird.
And like Brent says, yeah, the Salton Basin area. If you go to my website, curiouscryptid.com, there's a blog page. It's maybe more of a journal page, and I've been neglecting it for the last year and a half. But all of these things are documented down there in part. So, I'm getting older and I don't want my memory to leak too much. And especially when I was trying to find those journals and I couldn't find what box those were in.
Yeah.
And does Gary Johnson want to hear my ghost story? It sounds like. Yeah, I've had some paranormal experiences. I am not afraid of talking about the woo. And I'm not afraid of calling it the woo. Actually, it's not an embarrassing thing. But yeah, I had gone out to an area near Index with a couple of friends, and as I drove past a spot, we were going up to a place called Jack Pass. You can look it up in Google Maps, and I had this urge to pull over just after the town of Index. Now, you can't drive on this road anymore because it washed out, and I don't know if they're ever going to repair this road. But, rational thinking me, I'm thinking I want to pull over for some reason, but I'm under a thick canopy of trees. We're going up there to go stargazing, and I can't see the stars. Why am I going to pull over here? I couldn't get this nagging sensation out of my brain. So when we got to the next spot where the road crosses the river, I pulled over and I made an excuse to my friends. We've got another half hour to drive before we get up there. I want to be sure the sky is clear so we don't waste our time. No, that wouldn't be Projects Cashew. That would be the blog. Projects is interesting too, but it's not where the stories are. And so I made the excuse that I want to just see if the sky is clear, if it's worth still going up there. And I didn't want to lose my night vision, and I didn't want them to lose their night vision. So I told them, when you open the door, close your eyes, click the door open, get out, close the car door, and then open your eyes. And I looked around carefully to make sure there weren't any animals around. I've been in this area my whole life. And I'm not scared of the dark. I'm not afraid of this area. I click the door, I close my eyes, I click the door, and all of a sudden a wave of terror runs through me. And I hear them starting to get up. I hear them get out of the car. I'm not going to chicken out of this. I push the door open. I get out of the car. I close the door. I hear the other doors close. And I still have this sense of terror, but there's nothing going on around that I can see. There's nothing alarming. And then, Kevin Harder, yes, he is doing some other interesting documentation with Bigfoot DNA. One of my friends starts taking slow, deliberate steps across the road. And this is just kind of an odd behavior. Gets almost to the other side of the road, and she turns around and runs back and just about tackles her boyfriend into my car. And she's terrified. Her voice is quivering, and she's crying. And I'm almost feeling the same level of terror, maybe slightly less than that. And I ask her, are you feeling okay? And she, yeah, I'm fine. High pitched, squeaky voice. And I pry her chin out and I say, are you kidding about the way you're feeling? No? Good. Let's go. We get back in the car and we turn around and we drive back about 20 minutes and pull over at a railroad siding. And everything's cool. Nothing's scary. Nothing's wrong. Nothing feels bad. She had been playing with spiritual, mystical stuff, and she had asked me to go with her. Her boyfriend wouldn't have anything to do with this. She asked me to go to these places with her to keep her from going down the rabbit hole. And she wanted to use tarot cards to figure out what happened. So, okay, let's do an experiment. Let's agree on a bunch of questions. Let's both do tarot card readings, see what comes out. We put a story together. It was a ghost, not a demon. It was a ghost of a woman who had been murdered and whose body had been dumped there. She was within the ages of about 18 to 26. And that's the story we got from the tarot cards.
Ted Bundy?
No. Unknown, really. Well, it could have been because apparently he was very busy in places outside of the Green River.
Right.
But totally unknown. Anyway, the big thing was 3 months later, they found the body.
Wow.
And I was watching the news and I saw where they were. And, they do the crime scene tape and they do the yellow paint on the road, this is where and things like that. I went up there about 2 weeks later, and the yellow line, the yellow arrow pointing to where they found the body was the spot where I first had the sense of I should pull over here.
Wow.
I can't explain that. I can't do anything with that. It's freaking weird. But that's why I'm willing to listen to people who have strange paranormal stories. Now, I am still going to ask questions, and I'm still going to try to find explanations.
That's why you're Curious Cryptid.
Yeah.
What year was this, John Ayers says?
That would have been around 92 or so, I think. It was a Jane Doe found in Index, and no, that was earlier. I was still in high school.
You said 86.
No, I said 86 or so with the Bigfoot encounter. The ghost thing, I was still in high school. That would have been around 81 or 82. A Jane Doe found near Index, Washington, buried as a Jane Doe in Snohomish County. Never identified.
There was a lot of that shit around that place.
Yeah.
Like up around where you live.
Yeah, I still did solo camping out in the woods.
I couldn't solo camp. I just couldn't. I'm too afraid of the dark.
Okay, I was going to ask, not permitted to, or just couldn't bring yourself to do it?
I could, unless I had a dog.
Yeah.
I could probably do it if I had a dog or one other person, but I couldn't do it by myself because I'm too high strung that any noise I heard, I'd be like sprung awake. And that's
Yeah,
what would happen.
I'll guarantee you, if you were along on a lot of the camping I did, yeah, you wouldn't have liked it. You're out in a remote area that is so dark you can't see your hand in front of your
Yeah.
face.
I've
And
watched.
and yeah, there were times when there was something big moving around near the camp, and when I moved
Yeah,
to look where it is, something charged off into the bush. The
yeah,
only thing is, I don't say that was Bigfoot.
right. Well, I was raised Catholic, so I've got this whole devil complex, demons and shit like that, even though I don't really believe in them. But still, it's in the
You
back of your
believe
head.
enough.
Yeah, exactly.
I,
Well, I
I,
believe in evil, but I don't know about
yeah. Well, my
supernatural.
experience has been, I think we are the real evil in the world. I
Yeah,
think
Chris.
humanity is the real evil in the world. Um,
Yeah, I heard about this guy. We haven't figured out why he did it or what happened to the bodies or anything yet, but yeah, that was pretty crazy. I've been on the John
no,
Bonet and
no,
Paddy McCann case for
Chris,
the last
Chris, you're
month.
asking about the Moscow, Idaho thing, the 4 students, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the bodies.
Oh yeah, we have the bodies. We just don't know why he did it or
Yeah,
the crime scene.
yeah. And I'm sorry. No, you don't want to understand what's going on in his head. You really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people think that, well, we can solve the crimes better if we can get inside the criminal's head. Well, look at some of the stuff that Cornell's talking about. You don't want to get into their heads.
Yeah. Or can you like intercept the crimes? I don't know. It's so random, you know.
But I also think there is good reason for a foreign entity who wants to disrupt and diminish the capacities of our society to amp this stuff up, to get people agitated, and to do a lot of things. If and this is one of the things in the paper. We didn't talk about this so much on Monday when we were chatting, but if after the Cold War, we're starting to find ways to do business with our Cold War enemies. They're our friends now, right?
Well, they were in the early '90s, but then we screwed them over by raping the country and giving the oligarchs raped the country, and
Yeah,
their life expectancy fell by 15 years.
yeah.
You know.
But if I were a foreign entity and I wanted to develop a program to disrupt and diminish the capacities of our society and divide our society, it would look pre social media, because that's way too easy to do with social media. Pre social media, it would look a lot like cable television. I'd invest heavily in entertainment. As a heavy investor in entertainment, I would push a few simple, basic ideas, nothing super overt, but just things to raise questions. I'm just asking questions. Where do you hear that? And just to cause enough cognitive dissonance, and then start pushing some weird ideas. The UFO ideas, finding Bigfoot, government conspiracies. And this is all great stuff on cable TV these days. But I mean, you throw in social media, and that's like that nuclear powered. And we know there are many fake accounts. And you don't have to actually use all of those fake accounts. You only actually use a few. And you link those accounts together as friends, so you can kind of see what's going on naturally with the algorithms. But you have a couple people that make friends with people who might be influencers, who might be easily influenced, who you can start to put a story in. And then when they start to push the story, you start to take some of your other fake accounts and you just like them and you just follow them. And the algorithm starts to say, wow, that must be an interesting story. I'm going to amp up this story and bring this to more people and expose more people to it. It is so super easy to do an intelligence operation like that now.
Yeah, but like Brent says, we also have like CIA operatives that go into these countries and create color revolutions and set up like.
Oh yeah, we do the same thing. I'm not saying we're innocent in this. There are two roles. There's intelligence, where you go to another country and you try to collect information about them and you try to fill in the narrative that you want. That's how intelligence works. And then there's counterintelligence, where our counterintelligence is supposed to stop the Chinese and the Russians and the others from doing that here. And I think they've failed us quite badly over the last few decades. I don't think they saw social media coming, and I'm not. And if they realized what was going on with the idea of things like cable TV and amplifying the woo and making it okay to believe in all of this weird, strange stuff, I think they underestimated the effect that it can have on a society.
Well, my family's calling me to go watch Snatch. Ever watch Snatch?
No.
Brad Pitt. It's about the boxing gypsies in England, and it's all about the London crime scene. The same guy did Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. James Ritchie. What's his name? It's really, really good. So we're gonna watch that as a family tonight. It's really entertaining stuff. Pretty brutal, but entertaining.
All right. Well, I'm almost always talking about Bigfoot. I have had immense fun talking about stuff other than Bigfoot.
Oh, it's a blast.
And, yeah, we don't have anything on anything, but we do know a lot of things about the way the brain works, and it's almost designed to fool us. And so we have to use that neocortex a little more.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm going to monetize this so I can get to my $100. I've made $96 in the last 2 years. I'm trying to get to 100 so I can pay for StreamYard to have more bells and whistles. So I'm starting off. I'm going to monetize this one so I can get a few more dollars so I can pay for StreamYard
the business
and have the background and shit. Yeah. Anyway, Steve, well, thanks for coming on. That was fun.
Thank you. And keep your head level.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm meditating every night now. And just, staying away from like heroin and shit.
Go to your happy place and hug your wife and play games with your kids.
Oh, the kids. That's another whole ball of wax. That's my problem. Yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks for... This is probably the biggest crowd I've had in like months. I've not had a big crowd in a long time. I've had like 12 people. I've got double tonight. Probably because you're here. I'm wondering where Western... He probably has a show. Joe probably has a show tonight. Or else he's out with Molly having burgers. And Leon disappeared.
He was having Jeep problems. Yeah.
Oh, he was, yeah. He was having car problems. I'm banned off Facebook for another couple of days because I said the French were assholes. And I was just talking about the World Cup. I was like supporting England. and someone's like, "Screw England," and I'm like, "The French are assholes. We're only messing around." But Facebook banned me for a month because of that. Like, you gotta be kidding me! I was just joking. I love the French. I love everybody.
But it's
Anyway,
true.
yeah, it's crazy. You like make a joke or go against the narrative, they ban you. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we can't have truth in social media.
You know, we have a saying in Northern Ireland: when something's really, really good, it's cracker. It's really good. It's cracker. That's what we call it.
Yeah, cracker has another meaning here in America.
Right. So one of my friends says on Facebook, "That's cracker," and he was banned for like a week. And I'm trying to explain to the Facebook people, no, it's a joke. It's Northern Irish vernacular. Stop. So then I go on to Twitter and I get addicted to Twitter. I should be a quitter. But yeah, I go on Twitter. I don't like Instagram. I don't really see the point in Instagram, but Twitter's good for news and arguing with people. And just finding information generally. And then you follow the accounts that you find. And then YouTube, of course. I love YouTube for long form news.
Yeah, I hope someone finds a way to save Twitter, but
we'll see. We'll see.
I think it's an important utility.
It is.
But it needs to operate in a free market. And the current ownership, I don't think, has a good understanding of the free market.
I don't know. I don't know about that stuff, but can we expect more shows like this, Cornell? Yes. I'm going to have probably Brent on soon because he's level-headed and he's good with the subject concerned. Willstar Mysteries is here. Hey, Willstar. Thanks for stopping by. It's almost over, though. Dave didn't stop by tonight. I wanted to see Dave. I think.
Oh, that's too bad. I like Dave.
Yeah, he's gone off the radar. I haven't seen him for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Bigfoot's gotten strange.
Yeah, we all need to go back to the drawing board. Sasquatch out of the shadows. Hey, man, how's it going? That's Alexander Petikoff. He does some great documentaries on Bigfoot.
Hey, Alex, you going to come to St. Helens this summer? No, you don't have to commit here.
Yeah, I'm sure he's just back from there. I thought he was there. Is Dave okay, Cornell? I don't know. I haven't heard from him in like 2 weeks. Usually I hear from him. I heard from him just before Christmas.
Facebook. I'd probably hear from him more on Facebook. I have to actually go check my email once in a while.
Yeah, I haven't seen him on Facebook because I've been banned. So, but I saw him post on Facebook yesterday because I'm a Bigfoot moderator. Anyway, guys, I will talk to you all later, okay? I got to go up and watch a movie with my family.
Yeah, spend some time with your family.
All right, guys. Steve, I'm going to end it right here and quit it. No after show. I got to go.
No problem.
Thanks for coming on.